So today I wanted to go over the February 2025 housing market report for St. Mary's, Charles, and Calvert counties. We're going to kick it off with St. Mary's, and then we will compare and contrast the counties as we go. So to kick it off, in February 2025, we had 89 closed sales in St. Mary's County. This is down 20% from the 111 we had in February 2024. In St. Mary's County, median sold prices held up and actually rose by 3.6% year over year. Days on market, however, doubled, so homes are sitting for twice as long. New pending sales dropped 31%, new listings are down 23%, and active listings are down 6%. Supply remained relatively stable, but we can see what happens here over the next month or two, and I'll keep you updated. Closed sales are sitting at the bottom of the 5-year range, and median price is sitting at the top of the 5-year range for the same time each year. Days on market, we see it here at 20, so it's pretty high for the last 5 years, but historically, 20 days is not really that long. New pending sales, very bottom of the last 5-year range, pretty abysmal. And then new listings, not quite at the very bottom of the range, but still very low. Active listings. So active listings, we're sitting at around 147. This is kind of in the middle of the last 4 years. There's been a pretty tight market, rather, in St. Mary's County for the last 5 years. So let's move on to Calvert County. Calvert County is relatively similar to St. Mary's County as far as these things go. We saw a 15% decrease in the number of closed sales. And where this kind of differs from St. Mary's, though, is that we saw prices come down in Calvert County. So prices dropped 6% on the median sold price. Days on market are up 15 days, which, like St. Mary's County, is almost a double of the same time last year. And new pending sales is down 8%. So these numbers are a little bit tighter in Calvert County, but overall we're seeing price pressure pushing the prices down in Calvert and homes sitting on the market longer. So closed sales in Calvert County are actually at the very low for the last 5 years, and median prices are actually kind of holding up. It's down relative to last year, but if you look at over the last 5 years, it's still significantly higher. Median days on market, about 31 days. So it's up here with these other peaks that we've seen in the previous years, and this kind of reflects seasonality. So the last 3 years we've seen these peaks in the early part of the year, but we'll see what happens and if they hold out as more homes come onto the market. New pending sales at the very bottom of the range for the last 5 years, and new listings pretty near the bottom of the range. So Charles County, we see a slightly different picture. We see the number of closed sales only down 1.8% versus the 15 and 20% that we're seeing in St. Mary's and Calvert. Home prices did come down a little bit in Calvert or Charles County relative to the same time last year, and then median days on market increased 15 days. So since homes kind of sit a little bit longer in Charles County anyway, this was not the same 100% increase that we're seeing in Calvert and St. Mary's. It's more like a 50% increase, which is still very significant. We're seeing a lot more supply come on this time of year than we did last February. And that's reflected in the months of supply sitting on the market. We're not at the very bottom of the range like we were seeing in St. Mary's and Calvert, but we are pretty low on the number of closed sales in Charles County. Kind of like Calvert County, we're seeing prices dip in February of 2025 relative to the previous years, but not too terribly. Median days on market. So this is actually kind of interesting. In Charles County, we see that same sort of shape in 2022 as we see financial tightening as we did in St. Mary's. Calvert had less of a blip there, but we're actually coming in closer to the 2019 numbers in Charles County than in St. Mary's or Calvert. New pending sales near the bottom of the range. New listings, I think this is the very bottom of the range for Charles County, actually. That's crazy. And then active listings, kind of floating around in the middle, as we've seen in the last 5 years, but you could kind of draw something trending up here, actually. So overall, what did I get from this? We're seeing prices coming down in Calvert and Charles counties relative to the same time last year. St. Mary's County is holding up a little bit better, but there is pressure, particularly in Charles County, where we see months of supply coming up and active listings coming up. So I think we're going to see an interesting spring market in Charles County, where some of these homes that are listed in February aren't selling as we go into March and April. It's going to make it very difficult as more supply comes online. I think we'll see prices drop even further. Thank you very much, and I hope you have a great day.